Hello, this is Georgina Rose, part-time esoteric content creator and part-time surfer of the Enochian Aethers. And in this video, we're going to be talking about what you need to celebrate the Enochian Aethers, but more importantly, what you don't. This is the Dot on the YouTube channel. On this channel, we discuss mysticism, religion, esoterica, the occult, culture, philosophy, and everything on the fringes of esoterica. And this video is going to be a little different because it's essentially a list of what you need, but it's also a list of what you don't. It's kind of two in one. I was inspired to do this because there's this trend going around on TikTok, which is an app that is pure hell and definitely controlled by the demiurge. Regardless, it's called deinfluencing, where basically people are talking about stuff that they have bought and stuff that people sell that are unnecessary and that you really shouldn't waste your money on. And I think this really applies to the occult and is something we should talk about, specifically in regard to tools. Because as occultists, as mystics, a lot of rituals we look at, especially if you're reading grimoires, require a lot of tools, and I think it's really overwhelming to new practitioners. I remember when I was new to esotericism, I was reading the Keys of Solomon, which, they're some of the most popular grimoires in the world. They're iconic, everyone knows them. And when you look at what is required for the magicians to have and use, the list is really, really long and comprehensive. And some of that stuff I remember reading and being like, I don't know where I'm going to get this. Because when I first started my practice, I was a teenager, right? I'm an adult now, but I was in high school. And I didn't have a job. I was just in school. And so for me, these ritual tools that I wanted and that I was trying to get, I simply could not. And I had to, DIY a lot, make things in my house work. And, as I got older, I am able to buy things and accumulate stuff and really put, myself into my ritual practice and devote myself to it further. I have definitely picked up some stuff that I don't use and I wish I hadn't bought. And when making this video, I was reflecting on what do I actually use? What things in my pretty decently sized collection of occult tools do I reach for? So this is my list of the occult tools you actually need. Now, your mileage is going to vary. I'm sure some people will disagree with my list, but I think this is semi-universal. I've experimented with a lot of different paradigms and traditions. I think there's a misconception from viewers of my channel that I practice everything I talk about on my YouTube channel. I don't. I have a specific spiritual practice. I just like to educate people on everything so that they can know what is out there and what they should pull from, because I do think it's best to be educated about, everything possible. But regardless, I have experimented a bit and I have, moved around as I've sort of found my will and made my way towards the great work. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing that you actually need is something that I reach for a lot, and that is a set of prayer beads. Now, depending on what tradition you're part of, you're going to want to get different prayer beads, right? Essentially what prayer beads are, they're a pretty universal idea. They're these strings with beads on them. So these are my go-to prayer beads. They are a set of 99 broken up into intervals of 33. And if you want to do 100, you can use this bit on the end to count that, the little fringe. In terms of prayer beads, there are tispas, there are rosaries, there are mala beads. There are a lot of them. And there also is a recommendation in some traditions to make a specific set of beads with a specific number based on what ritual you're doing or what tradition you're doing. I think that's a super good idea. These are great for counting mantras. These are great for counting, like, let's say you have to do a certain chant a number of times, right? These will count you off. And if you want to do a shorter section, you can always kind of like tie these off like this, right? Like you can be like, I only want to count to whatever this is, right? Do it like that. So they are customizable. I would advise getting a larger set rather than a smaller one. I have some very short prayer beads. I have some that are like a decade of the rosary. I have one that's like 33 alone. Go for a bigger one because you can always section it off. But these, you'll reach for them all the time. The next thing that you're actually gonna reach for are candles. Candles are incredibly important. So many different rituals require them. And these are the two sizes that I use the most. This is a 7-day candle. It's not exactly a 7-day candle. This one gets sold at the discount store down the road from my apartment for it has a price tag on it, $2.99 for one of these. That's pretty fair. These are the little tiny chime candles. My big tip with these is do not buy them from local occult stores because they upcharge them a lot. I've seen occult stores sell these for $3 each. Don't do that. Buy these in bulk on Amazon. There are a couple other websites that sell them. And you'll burn through these really quickly. Haha, that's funny. But genuinely, get these in a bunch of colors because some rituals be like, you need 4 blue candles. Buying 4 of these, that's expensive. Buying 4 of these, if you get a pack, there you go. Easy to do. And yeah, when you burn these down though, I do want to say this. You're gonna want either a candle holder or like a platter or something to put them on that is flame resistant. Otherwise, it's gonna fall, because these do, they do fall. So please put these in a holder, or do the thing where you light this and you drip it and then you like stamp it in like that. So it's like wax sealed down, because these will fall. So definitely have something to hold these in. And take care of them. I know these guys, it's really tempting to do a lot of not fire safe stuff with them. Please be responsible with these. Please do not burn your house down. It's generally advised to not leave these lit when you leave your house. I know certain rituals kind of require that, so if you're gonna do that, I know it's janky, put it in your shower away from the shower curtain. That's what I would do. The next thing that you will actually use is an incense burner. I have a ton of these. I have one that's shaped like a little like genie lamp. I have one that is one of the really huge dramatic ones you carry around. I have this one, it's like a little cauldron. And I have a bunch of those little boats. I have more than one incense burner, and my reasoning for that is that I burn a variety of different types of incense. I make my own incense sometimes. I use the cone incense, I use the stick. So I like to mix it up. You really only need one though. If you're someone who uses a ton of incense, I don't see the harm in having more than one. They're typically pretty cheap. Unless you're getting some really fancy incense burner, these are very cheap. I will say this, I think that buying an incense burner is better than buying other types of things you can put incense in. Just generally, like I've seen people use the stuff with dirt. I've seen the like true cauldron. This is not like a true cauldron. This is like a set incense burner. Maybe people burn in like a proper cauldron. That's fine. I find that's a lot bulkier and a pain and takes more work. These you can just light it and put it in, which in the grand scheme of your ritual, I feel like you're often going to want to just kind of get that out of the way so you can focus on bigger things. But if you want to use some complex burner, that's fine. But I like these guys. The next thing you need, you notice I'm holding nothing. This is because you don't need to buy anything for this, is a place to put offerings. I have an altar table that I don't really want to show on camera because I feel like that's a little too personal, but that I put all my offerings on, as well as all my statues are there. I keep a lot of my candles there. That's where I'm getting a lot of this stuff from. A lot of this is sitting on that table. And I put my offerings there. You can get like a bowl to do offerings. I've seen that a lot. Just take one from your kitchen. You don't need to buy some complex, elaborate offering bowl. If you want to do that, do it. There's no shame in it, but you don't really need to, put a lot of money into where you put your offerings. Also, certain offerings you can put outside. You can put them on your windowsill. You can definitely just like take a spot of your home and do this. And on altar tables as a whole, you don't necessarily need to buy a table to do that. You can just repurpose a bookshelf or a window shelf or, the top of like a dresser. My altar table is, I bought this really pretty tablecloth and I threw it on top of these big drawers. Like it's where you keep your clothes. It's like those 3 sets of drawers pushed against the wall. And the top I have completely converted into an altar, and on the wall above it, I've put like paintings of specific deities. I've put like little hanging things. I have talismans hanging on the wall. And so that entire like side of my apartment is like kind of my temple. But really what the table it was originally a dresser that I converted. And you can totally do that. The next thing you will need is a pen. A pen is incredibly useful, and I would figure you probably have one in your house. This is just one that I like. It has like little crystals in it. I was sent it from Conscious Items, which I thought was sweet. And basically the pen is very useful because a lot of those talismans, and this is some tea on talismans, you can do that on paper and with a pen. Now, for certain ones, you have to make them in the metal because the metal is part of that, spiritual talisman itself. Like certain ones you do have to craft into a necklace. But a lot of them you can do with this guy and then charge it. Also sigils. Sigils. This guy, you can draw the sigil on paper, charge it, and just have it like that. You can also, for certain rituals, you're going to want to write on yourself, like on your palm. A lot of jinn evictions, for instance, you write the Arabic on your palm. So yeah, this has use too. You can also write sigils on your body or, write sigils in your planner, like very multi-purposeful tool. And as well, the next thing you'll need is one of these, though if you want, it can be a Google Doc. Basically, something to keep your magical record, your grimoire, your book of shadows in. You're gonna wanna keep records of your spiritual experiences. When you do a big ritual, you're gonna wanna write that down. You're gonna write down what it is. If it's something that's really long and it's on a laptop, you can print that out and glue or tape that in. I've done that a bunch of times. And then you're gonna write what you did. And what I like to do and how I format this is on one side, I'm not gonna open it because this is my actual ritual diary, this is my actual magic word. On one side, I put the ritual I did, and then on the other side, on this side, I put my experience, what happened, what synchronicities I saw, so I can really get a sort of understanding of what I've done and what it means. As someone who spent a lot of time in Thelema, a big thing that was sort of stressed on me by kind of the stuff that I was coming up in and exposed to and taught to me is the idea of the method of science, the aim of religion. It's a big Thelemic motto, and there's an idea within Thelema called scientific illuminism, which is basically that you take all these spiritual ideas, you try them, you experiment with them, and then you record what happens, and that's how you can sort of decipher truth. Kind of applying the scientific method to magic. Obviously, it's not the same as empirical science, it's different, but I think it's a good way to sort of experiment and try to figure out some clues of what's out there. So these are really, really helpful. You don't need to get one this pretty, it can be any notebook. I just have a flair for the dramatic. Oh, also another thing you might want, a second journal you want to have is a dream journal. A dream journal is really, really valuable because when you are dreaming, you are in Yesod, you are off this material plane, you are experiencing something higher. But very often spirits will communicate to you through dreams, or they'll have dream specific symbols that you're going to want to remember because your dreams they're your subconscious, but they're also you in this other plane. So recording your dreams will make a huge, huge difference when it comes to developing your practice. The next thing you are actually going to reach for, and this is super important for those into ceremonial practice, oils, ritual oils, these little guys. So you can keep these in anything. I have some in jars, I have some in these are called drams. I actually bought this with an oil from a store and I ran through the entire oil, and so I started refilling it with my own oils. And these they're versatile. So you can sort of pat these on like a perfume before you leave your house to infuse yourself with a specific intent. This is a planetary oil that I have in here right now. It's like a Saturn type oil for discipline, boundaries, time, and to sort of connect to that Saturnine energy. So if I wanted to be a bit more Saturnian today, I could just pat this on as a perfume. A lot of these smell really nice. Or in a ritual, you can use them. I'm not going to literally use it because I don't want to burn through it, but you use it to anoint your third eye or to anoint your forehead. And in certain meditation practices, this was a thing in like Renaissance mysticism. People would put it on their eyelids before they meditated. And then they would also stare into candle flames after doing that. Maybe don't do that last part. Maybe don't burn your corneas out for ascension. I guess you gotta trade one sense for the sixth sense, right? No, please don't do that. Please do not burn your eyes out. I actually have tried this though, so maybe I can't tell you not to do it, but yeah, maybe don't. Also don't vape these. I made a joke about vaping Abramelin oil on Twitter once, and I think someone actually tried it, so please don't do that. Don't consume these. That's what I'm saying, don't consume these. Most of these oils, first of all, I think they would taste nasty, but just don't eat them. You can also make your own, which is a really valuable spiritual practice. If you're exploring either physical alchemy or like herbalism, making these can be a whole practice onto itself. I make a lot of my own oils, and it really allows it to be a lot more personal. And one thing you do when you make your own is you can do it on specific days that are relevant. Like I'm recording this the day after Imbolc. So if I made an oil yesterday, I could infuse it with that Imbolc energy so that I could carry Imbolc with me throughout the rest of the year. Or, and this is a big thing in a lot of sort of planetary magic writings, is you do it on specific transits. Like let's say there's a really important conjunction or there's an eclipse, you could make an oil on that eclipse and always have a little bit of that energy with you that you could use for all sorts of things later on. The next thing that you will actually use is talismanic jewelry. So there's a lot of ways you can make a talisman or an amulet or anything like that, right? A sort of charged object that you carry with you. And one of the ways is through jewelry. So these are two consecrated and charged pieces of jewelry that I own. If you guys pay attention to my hands like really, really closely, which I don't know if anyone actually does, but if you do, I wear this square smoky quartz ring a ton. Now, I don't wear this for the crystal. I wear this because I consecrated this to a very specific deity. And when I wear this ring, I am honoring that deity. I'm carrying that with me. It's an act of devotion in and of itself, but also it connects me and gives me that extra level of spiritual protection. You know what? I'm gonna put it on right now. And this is a pendant. I consecrated this a very long time ago. And it also represents a specific thing. This one, though, is not about a deity. This is about an intent. This one represents a very specific intention. I was wearing it yesterday on Imbolc for that reason. And what I wanted to say about this is that talismans don't need to be like ugly or, bulky looking. I have a lot of those that are very like bulky and complex looking. Like I own some of the Solomonic pentacles that I have consecrated and, you know, use them as you would use the pentacles as are taught in the grimoire tradition, and I'll like wear them or carry them. You can do that too. Not saying they're ugly, that's maybe a rude phrase, but you know what I mean? They can look very subtle and not overtly occulty if you don't want to. But if you want to, that's totally okay too. Whatever your aesthetic is, you can do that. The next thing that you will actually reach for and use, and this is one of the most classic things to have, is some sort of bell, singing bowl, tingsas. These are tingsas. I really like them. I like the drama of it. Isn't it a vibe? But they're also bells. For a long time, I used a bell more than these. I still have that bell. And this can be used for all sorts of stuff. If you do any thelemic rituals, you're going to notice that it will have like these things like 3, 5, 3. The 3-5-3 pattern is really important in thelema. But there are other patterns too, right? And you'll also notice like certain things will say knock 3. You can use a bell for all of that, or you can literally knock. And what's interesting about these patterns that my Thelemites will start to get used to is when you want to connect to that, you can just do it like this. And it sort of carries it with you, and so you can do magic on the go. Also, planetary energies have these numbers too. So let's say you want to connect to the moon. The moon is 9. You could, in a ritual, hit this 9 times. When you're on the go, you could go. I've seen people do it with their foot too. It's a really nice way to carry it with you. But these, they're going to be used a lot, or some sort of bell. So many rituals call for them. The next thing that you will actually use is a compass. Now, you don't need to buy a compass. You can use the one on your phone, but this will come in handy. When you start doing rituals, very often it will say you need to face east or west or north or south, depending on the tradition. A lot of like Hermetic stuff and general Western tradition faces east. Whereas I know people who are Nordic practitioners, a lot of those rituals you face north, and all sorts of variations on that. As well, each of these directions, north, east, south, west, they correspond to specific elements. So depending on what you face, you are connecting to that element. So there's a lot of importance on where you face, where you stand in a room, because when you are in your temple, you are in your microcosm, and whatever direction you face, it will make a huge, huge impact on how the ritual feels, how it comes out. And so a compass, it's important to have. You should always know what is east. For me, in this apartment, east is like that way, this way. So it's generally this direction. So when I do my rituals, like my altar, it's against the east wall. That makes sense to me. And, you know, you're going to want to know. Now, the final thing that I would say is something you actually need is something you can have a number of options on what you choose. This is basically just having something on your floor to be comfortable on, to sit on, to lay on, to meditate on. That will make a big difference. For this, you can do a yoga mat, you can do a meditation cushion, you can do a pillow, you can do a prayer rug, anything like that. Just make sure it has a bit of padding and is comfortable, because when you're doing things like path working, which path working is basically a way of, through meditation, trance, and visualization, you go through various spheres, whether they're planetary, on the tree of life, anything like that, that can make a big difference. And as well, a meditation cushion, when you're meditating, you'll have something to sit on and to, you know, be cozy in. Very often when you're doing path workings or meditations or even just mantras, you're going to be doing it for a long time, and standing, it can, you know, it's not always what we want to do. And certain things you'll absolutely need to lay down or to sit down or to kneel. There are a number of practices where you're obligated to kneel, and kneeling on the hardwood floor is painful. Though if you're a Catholic, you might want to kneel on the hardwood floor because that's saying as a like penance, so it can get you kind of like good points. I know they don't call them good points, but you get what I mean. Like that has a utility, but generally you're just gonna want something beneath you. It's useful. I have mine. I have a meditation cushion, a yoga mat, a prayer mat. I have all sorts of stuff for this. And I bring them out all the time. They get a ton of use. Trust me, it'll make a difference. So these are the things that I would say are the most important. And what's interesting, and you may have noticed, these are not always the flashiest things, and these are not the things that are in, you know, when you're reading a beginner occult book and they have that diagram of what an altar should look like. This is very different than that list. And that's because a lot of those lists are not the most useful, because this is the thing about buying like specific ritual tools. These are two of my very specific ritual tools, and these I use quite a bit. But if I had just bought these because I thought these were things I should own, I probably wouldn't have used them. This I reach for now and again, but not as much as I reach for this. This is an athame. This is a ritual dagger. When you're doing, like, say, a banishing ritual, you will do this with it. This can point directions. This can be used to direct energy, because what this represents is the masculine. This is fire. This is that intense pressing. And so when you're wanting to use something masculine, one of these guys is incredibly useful. But if I had just bought these because I saw them on a diagram of what an altar should look like, who knows if I would actually use it. And this is a very specific thing. This is a triangle of art. If you are familiar with the Western grimoire tradition, you're gonna know about these guys. This is used for such a specific task. If I was not actively doing that practice and I just bought this because I saw this in a grimoire or I saw this on a table and I wasn't actually using that grimoire, it would just collect dust. It would sit on my altar and collect dust. Same with like Enochian banners. Buying the Enochian banners, if you're an Enochian practitioner and you are a serious Enochian practitioner who does it a lot, that makes sense. But don't just buy it. Think consciously about, what will I use? What will I grab for? And what will, get some dust on my altar? Because there's some things on my altar that kind of collect dust, and that is unfortunate. And I think as people, we should try to be a bit more mindful of what stuff we bring into our house. And, think critically about, okay, when do I actually need this tool? I would say you should buy a tool when you know what you're using it for, you could explain what you're using it for to other people, and you know you're going to use it frequently. That's when I would say you should buy it. Before then, just please don't buy ritual tools that you don't know what they're for. Be mindful and conscious. So that's this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you are subscribed for 93 days, you will meet your Holy Guardian Angel and you will never need to use a tool ever again. If you want to keep this channel running, I am supported by Patreon. My Patreon is really cool. You can join my Telegram group where you can talk with me. You can ask me questions in Patreon DMs. I give ritual guides that are 20 pages of rituals I have written every single month. So you can just try rituals and, go through all the steps. I have some that are beginner friendly, some that are more advanced in every guide. So anyone can experience my guides and make it work for them. As well, I give an extra video every single month, early access to all of these videos, and if you're a high enough tier, I do a monthly spiritual consultation where we can meet and talk about your practice and what you need to change, and you can ask me questions and all that stuff. So I will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye.